Okay, let's just jump right in. We're doing a deep dive today into a world where, well, the future's been canceled. It's been surgically removed.
Mhm.
And what we have is this collection of sources, it's a personal diary really, from a former insider, someone who saw it all happen.
Right. And our mission today is to unpack that, to really look at the socio-political and moral landscape of this post-Omega world. It's about the cost of order.
The cost of order when there's no posterity, no point to it all.
Exactly. And we're going to look at the decisions made by the ruling elite, this group called the Council of England, and the tiny, fragile resistance that's starting to emerge.
And it all hangs on the central question, doesn't it? When the end is certain, does stability, even a cruel stability, justify the means?
That's the question. And it's a heavy one.
So the stage is set with a date. It should be a celebration, but it's not. It's an ending. January 1st, 2021.
And the state radio service delivers this news with absolutely no fanfare. It's just a fact. Joseph Ricardo, aged 25 years, 2 months, and 12 days, is dead.
The last human being officially recorded as born on Earth.
And how does he die? Not in some grand struggle, not discovering a cure. No, he's killed in a pub brawl in Buenos Aires.
A drunken fight. It's so banal.
It's the perfect metaphor, isn't it? The universal loss of dignity, the futility of it all. If that's how the last life ends, what does that say about all the lives that are left?
And this realization, this chilling fact, it lands right on the shoulders of our source, our diarist, Theo Faron.
Theo. He's 50, a historian at Oxford, a Merton Fellow, and crucially, his personal connections are, well, they're everything. He's the cousin of the man running the whole show.
Xan Lyppiatt, the Warden of England.
Right. And Theo's reason for keeping this diary is fascinating. He knows there's no future reader, no posterity. He says it's one small additional defense against personal anxiety.
Anxiety, that's an old word. Spiritual listlessness, apathy.
It's the perfect word for this world. He's a historian with no future to interpret the past for. So the act of recording, of just writing it down, it becomes this small act of defiance against the meaninglessness.
We have to anchor this for everyone, though. What is the crisis? How did this world come to be?
It's not a bomb, not a plague, it's silence. The year 1995 is what they call Year Omega.
The last year anyone was born.
Yeah.
Anywhere.
And it wasn't even confirmed until 2008. That's when that last generation, the Omegas, they reached maturity and, well, they were all universally sterile. It was a slow, creeping biological failure.
And the most profound failure, the one Theo really hammers home, was the failure of science.
Oh, absolutely. For 25 years, Western science, which had become, humanity's new religion, its source of hope, it completely failed. It couldn't find a cause, let alone a cure.
He uses a pretty brutal analogy for it.
He does. He says humanity was like a lecherous stud suddenly stricken with impotence. The humiliation was total. The loss of faith was absolute. When your God, science, can't solve the most basic problem, the failure to do what, as he says, the animals do without thought, then your whole moral compass just shatters.
So that brings us to the Omega generation themselves, born in 1995, the last class, the final cohort of humanity.
And our sources describe them as just tragic, beautiful, but fundamentally broken.
Physically extraordinary,
It's
apparently.
like nature's last cruel joke. They're all universally beautiful, strong, intelligent. Society lavished everything on them. They were studied, indulged. They were everyone's last hope, and at the same time, everyone's ongoing research project.
But that kind of pressure, that indulgence, it has to create problems, and it seems to manifest differently in the males and females.
It does. The male Omegas, they're described as, handsome and smart, but also uniquely cruel. Arrogant, violent. It's like they're channeling all that futility into just pure aggression.
And the women.
The female Omegas are remote, listless, classical, often deeply depressed. They don't have that same energy. They were the physical vessels for a future that they knew was never going to arrive. Imagine that burden.
So you have this generation that society both worships and fears, and that becomes a source of instability.
A profound source. And this is where the state, where Xan's regime, steps in with a very cynical solution. The fear really crystallized around these gangs, the painted faces.
Young men ambushing travelers.
Right. Heavily populated by Omegas, according to the rumors. And here's the brutal pragmatism of the state. If they catch a regular gang member, he gets shipped off to the man penal colony, which we'll get to. It's hell on earth.
But if it's an Omega?
If it's an Omega, he's allegedly offered immunity, a deal. Join the state security police, the SSP.
Wow. So they don't reform the violence, they just co-opt it.
They give it a uniform, a sanctioned outlet. The youthful, aggressive energy of the last generation is harnessed to maintain the security state. It tells you everything about their priorities, order, at any moral cost.
Theo taught some of them, right? At Oxford.
He did. And he says they knew exactly what they were, a historical footnote. Their intelligence was just wasted in classes where the unspoken question was always, what's the point?
When there's no future, history is just a collection of dead stories.
Exactly, and so the focus shifts away from the grand arc of civilization and down to the minute-by-minute management of the self and the erasure of any painful reminders of what's been lost.
A conscious process of bereavement. The whole society going through the stages of grief.
It was an organized erasure. Children's playgrounds went first. Theo notes that the swings were, chained up for years before they were finally removed, and when they grassed over the asphalt patches, he said they looked like small mass graves.
That detail. It's haunting. Societal trauma being treated like a burial.
Then you have the toys. Most were systematically burned, but the dolls survived.
And became something else entirely, something unsettling.
Deeply unsettling. It fueled this whole strange, almost sinister industry. Elaborate, expensive, sometimes powered dolls. They called them the 6 monthlies. Theo describes seeing these half-demented women treating the dolls like real children.
There's an anecdote in the source material that just illustrates the violence simmering right under the surface of this.
Oh, the fight.
Yes.
Yes. Theo sees 2 women arguing over their dolls, and one of them, in this outburst of pure, unresolved grief and rage, just snaps. She grabs the other woman's expensive doll and just smashes it again and again against a stone wall.
It's not about the doll.
Of course not. It's a psychological collapse. You attack the symbol because the real loss is just too vast, too unbearable to confront directly.
So schools get repurposed for adult education. Children's books disappear from libraries. The culture is cleansed. And this void, it has to be filled with something.
With immediate temporal pleasures, of
Yeah.
course, with procreation gone, interest in sex for its own sake apparently wanes. It's replaced by this yearning for a kind of idealized romantic love and a huge surge in sensual substitutes.
Because if there's no genetic future, the only thing you have is your body. Right now.
And the state provides. The National Health Service, the NHS, starts offering pampering.
That's an amazing detail.
Isn't it? The NHS, which used to be about healing, is now about comfort. Theo talks about the aging population being pummeled, stretched, stroked, caressed, anointed, scented. Lady Margaret Hall at Oxford, a venerable college, is turned into a state-run massage center where he goes for his weekly hour of pampering.
It's the council delivering on its promise. Freedom from want, freedom from boredom, through state-sponsored hedonism.
And that focus on the present also creates this obsession with physical health, longevity.
Golf becomes the national game.
Which is perfect when you think about it. It's gentle, repetitive, non-productive. It just passes the time. Theo hates golf, so he takes up running, meticulously charting every mile, every heartbeat. Prolonging the life of this one single temporary body becomes the new religion for many.
But all of this, the pampering, the exercise, it's just a mask for the core psychological state of the world, what Theo calls the ennui universal.
The existential funk, the universal negativism, the lassitude, the depression. And that's a key point. It's not just sadness, it's the lack of telos of purpose. If there's no future, why strive? Why create? Why build anything? Every achievement is meaningless.
Theo tries to fight it with his own consolations. Books, music, food.
Nature. He finds this sharp, bittersweet beauty in the Oxford spring, knowing that, the bluebells and the chestnuts will all continue long after the human intelligence that observes them is gone.
And that pleasure, he says, is so rare it becomes indistinguishable from pain.
Yes. The joy is always undercut by the certainty of extinction. That's the background noise of Xan's England, a quiet desperation that only the council's iron rule keeps from boiling over into chaos.
And when science fails, when family disappears, people turn to other things for meaning.
Religion. It has a revival, but it has to be a very specific kind of religion. One tailor-made for the ennui universal.
The old fire and brimstone stuff doesn't work anymore.
No, the challenging faiths declined fast. Roaring Roger, the big orator who talked about sin and judgment, he fails. Because how do you condemn apathy in a world overcome by it? How do you justify hardship when comfort is the only goal left?
So what takes hold is something much softer, sweet, Rosie McClure.
Rosie, the evangelist from Alabama. Her gospel is pure, uncomplicated love and total gratification. Her rallies were famously preceded by the Beatles' "All You Need Is Love."
It's a profoundly narcissistic message.
Totally. God is love, therefore everything you want is justified by love, and she sanitizes all the uncomfortable parts of theology.
Right. She gets rid of the cross.
She abolishes the second person of the Trinity, Christ, and the crucifixion, and replaces it with a golden orb of the sun. The cross is it's too uncomfortable, it represents barbarism, but more importantly, it represents sacrifice and suffering. And in a world avoiding suffering at all costs, that's a non-starter.
Her version of heaven sounds less like salvation and more like a package holiday.
It's an internal Costa del Sol. Endless food, wine, sun, pleasure. Hell is just a fourth-rate, ill-conducted hotel. The whole thing is designed to reassure the body that its immediate desires will be met forever.
But this moral vacuum leads to some truly bizarre practices. It shows the spiritual distress is still there under the surface.
The contrast is jarring. On one hand, you have Rosie's soft gospel. On the other, Theo witnesses public flagellance. Men, naked to the waist, just whipping their own backs with knotted cords in the public parks.
A search for meaning through pain to break through the numbness.
And then, on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, the sheer absurdity of christening kittens.
That story is incredible.
Theo runs into these two middle-aged women at an old church, and they're proudly showing off these kittens in bonnets, asking him to admire them. Christening kittens, public self-flagellation. It's all part of the same chaotic moral landscape. With no future to anchor them, people just grab onto any ritual that offers a moment of meaning, no matter how ludicrous or painful.
So when society's moral and familial anchors are gone, a political anchor has to be hammered in place.
And that brings us to Xan Lyppiatt and his council, the iron fist in the velvet glove that holds this whole decaying world together.
Xan, the Warden of England. Theo, his cousin, paints a really nuanced picture of him.
He does. Xan has genuine charm, real charisma, but it's married to this deep ruthlessness. He's obsessively self-sufficient. He cannot tolerate being questioned or interfered with.
And the title itself, Warden, not Prime Minister. Why?
Because those titles, Prime Minister, Lord Protector, they imply an election, an obligation to the people or to a higher power. Warden suggests a caretaker, someone guarding Britain's stability for the short time it has left. He rules by decree. Parliament is purely advisory. It's a dictatorship, plain and simple, just a very quiet, very English one.
And he understands the theater of power, the jewelry, for instance.
The coronation ring. A mass of sapphire and diamonds worn casually on his finger. Theo is shocked, but Xan wears it as a bauble for the people. It's a signal of stability, of heritage, of unquestionable authority.
When you've lost faith in God and science, you need a tangible symbol of power to believe in.
Precisely. But Xan doesn't do it alone. We need to get into the machinery of this regime, the council members. This is the engine that turns Xan's pragmatism into policy.
The division of labor in managing extinction.
And he needs specialists who are absolutely loyal and completely unsentimental, starting with Martin Wolvington, industry and production.
Van's old army buddy.
Right. He's the practical one, the logistics man. He makes sure the trains run on time, the NHS masseurs are available, the golf courses are maintained. His loyalty is absolute. And Theo notes his little tell.
The doodling.
During the most intense council discussions, he meticulously doodles these perfect little toy soldiers from the Napoleonic Wars. He's a man obsessed with order, precision, managed conflict. He deals in materials, not morals.
Then you have Harriet Marwood.
Yeah.
Health, science, and recreation. The universal grandmother.
And maybe the most dangerous of them all, politically. She's the voice of reason, of care. Her job is PR. She can make the most atrocious laws sound compassionate and necessary. She's the velvet glove that makes the iron fist palatable.
Which brings us to the Iron Fist herself, Felicia Rankin. Home Affairs and Justice.
A distinguished, very acerbic lawyer, and Theo admits to this intense personal antipathy towards her.
Part of it is her appearance, right?
She's almost obsessed with it. Her face is strikingly asymmetrical, lovely in profile, but discordant, mismatched when you look at her head-on. He thinks this fuels his opposition to her. She provides the cold, legalistic framework for all the regime's abuses. She's the one who makes sure the murder is covered by forms signed in triplicate.
And finally, the intellectual powerhouse, Karl Engelbach, Justice and State Security.
Engelbach is the brain, the administrative genius, but he's physically wasting away, dying of some illness. He's skeletal, but his voice, his intellect are razor sharp. And his ideology is the philosophical backbone of the whole council.
What's his core belief?
It's simple and terrifying. Change what can be changed. ruthlessly to ensure national survival, except what can't be changed, extinction. He rationalizes every necessary evil by arguing that maintaining British order, keeping it free from the chaos you see everywhere else, is the only moral good left.
And so their mandate, the promise they make to the people, boils down to three things.
Freedom from fear, freedom from want, and freedom from boredom. That's the deal. And they constantly point to the rest of the world mass, emigration, civil wars, reversion to myth, and human sacrifice as the alternative. Their argument is pure pragmatism. You want comfort and safety for your final years. You accept our methods.
The council sells order, but the price is humanity itself.
Which brings us to the systems of cruelty that prop up this stability. Let's start with the most formalized, the most chilling, the quietus.
Organized mass suicide.
It started organically, groups of elderly people choosing to jump off cliffs, but the council couldn't have that spontaneity. It's messy, so they formalized it, sanitized it, local councils took it over. Towing people out to sea was deemed more sensible.
And the bureaucracy is key. Forms in triplicate.
Of course. And the surviving relatives get a pension, what Theo calls blood money. It's brilliant in a sick way. It forces societal complicity. How can you argue against it when your family is financially benefiting?
Theo witnesses one of these ceremonies at Southwold. And the description is, it's like a stage play.
It's all choreographed to look peaceful. The elderly women are in white robes. They carry little flowers. A band is playing cheerful wartime songs, then hymns like Abide With Me. It's meant to look like a dignified, peaceful departure.
But Theo sees the reality. He sees the mechanics of it.
He does. He sees them guided on to these low, barge-like boats, and as they get on, soldiers bend down and shackle their ankles, attach weights. The plan is for the soldiers to knock out the plugs once the barges are out of sight, then just motor back. It's murder by drowning, disguised as a voluntary transition.
And then comes the moment that shatters everything for him. Hilda Palmersmith. She tries to escape.
She leaps into the freezing water, crying out, trying to get back to shore. And Theo, in that moment, breaks. He runs to help her. But a soldier gets there first.
And he hits her.
Viciously. With the butt of his pistol right on the side of the head. She tries to get up, and he hits her again. Theo is thrown back by other soldiers, and they just whisper, "Let it be, sir. Let it be."
And in that moment, he knows. This isn't about choice or compassion. It's about elimination. It's murder.
That one act of brutality is the catalyst. It forces him out of his role as a detached spectator. He sees the true cost of the council's order.
And beyond controlling the old, there's the system for controlling the violent. The man penal colony.
The island of devils. This is how they deliver freedom from fear, deportation for life for any serious crime. But the real horror is its deliberate design.
Felicia Rankin's argument for it is logical in a chilling way.
Her argument is, if these men choose to live by creating chaos, let them live in the chaos they create. The colony is intentionally left ungoverned, the strongest convicts rule. There's starvation, torture, rumors of cannibalism. It's a living hell.
And we get a personal account of this from Miriam, a member of the resistance. Her brother, Henry.
Henry was deported. He manages this miraculous escape, rows a dinghy to the coast, and walks for weeks, starving, terrified to get to his sister in Oxford. It's a heartbreaking story of survival, but the state's response is even worse.
They tracked him the whole time.
The whole way. 6 grenadiers, 6 SSP. They followed his trail, and they waited. They let him get to Miriam's cottage, let him feel safe for a moment, and then they surrounded the place and dragged him out.
It's a refined cruelty.
As Rolf, the resistance leader, says later, it gives the SSP an extra kick. They kill Henry while he's attempting to escape, and then they send Miriam his ashes, white grit in a plastic bag. It's not about justice. It's about permanent elimination and the psychological terror of absolute state power.
And the third pillar of this cruel system is economic. The sojourners, legalized slavery.
These are imported workers, often omegas from poorer nations. They do the essential but undesirable jobs the British won't do anymore. Cleaning sewers, caring for the incontinent aged.
And their conditions are impossible.
They work for a pittance, they live in segregated camps, no citizenship rights, and at age 60 they're deported no matter how long they've been there. The council's defense is that they're anxious enough to come, that it's still better than home.
But Theo sees the deeper social manipulation at play.
The privilege of hiring sojourners is reserved almost exclusively for the elite, the council and their friends, so it serves two purposes. It maintains the infrastructure cheaply, and more importantly, it reinforces the hierarchy. It gives the privileged class someone to look down on, someone to feel superior to, cushioning them from the reality of the dying world they rule.
So having seen the quietus and heard Miriam's story, Theo gets pulled very reluctantly into the resistance.
5 fishes, and they are, well, they're an amateur outfit, to put it mildly. It's this disparate, almost comical group of people driven by outrage or ambition or, in one case, divine command.
Let's break them down. Who are they?
Rolf is the leader, dark, handsome, but sulky. Theo thinks he's driven more by a bitter jealousy of Xan than by pure idealism. Then there's Julian, Rolf's wife. She's the absolute moral center of the group.
The heart of the operation.
Completely. She has this quiet, almost transparent purity of purpose. Then you have Luke, the idealistic priest, searching for compassion in a world that's discarded it. And Miriam, of course, driven by pure vengeance for her brother.
And Gascoigne.
And Gascoigne, the tubby one, whose main outrage seems to be that Xan's security forces are using the good name of the Grenadiers. It shows you how varied their motivations are.
And Julian specifically approaches Theo. She uses that family connection to Xan. It's a huge gamble.
And Theo is deeply hesitant. He knows they're amateurs. He tells them they're not ready for the SSP. But Julian's simple, direct appeal, combined with Miriam's raw, horrific story about Henry, it just breaks through his defenses. He agrees to lobby Xan for reform.
And their demands, their manifesto, it strikes at the 3 pillars of Xan's order.
It does. They demand a general election, a direct challenge to his control. They demand full civil rights for the sojourners, an end to the economic exploitation.
And they go after the cruelty.
Abolish the quietus, restore order to the man-penal colony. It's a direct assault on the systems that provide freedom from fear. And finally, they want an end to the compulsory testing in public porn shops, a challenge to the state-sanctioned moral degradation.
So Theo takes this to Xan, expecting a private chat, a cousin-to-cousin talk.
And he walks right into an ambush. The full council is there, waiting for him. It's pure psychological warfare.
So he's on the defensive from the start.
Completely. He feels their collective, intimidating gaze. And Xan, wearing that coronation ring, is just the casual ringmaster. The whole power structure is arrayed against him.
Theo leads with what he saw, the clubbing of Hilda Palmersmith. He calls it murder.
And Felicia Rankin, the lawyer, just dismisses it instantly. A mismanaged quietus, she calls it. She argues the fact they even need armed guards proves their point, that people lose their nerve and need to be managed.
But the real intellectual defense comes from the dying mastermind, Karl Engelbach.
Engelbach, with this devastating coldness, lays out their philosophy. He says the chaos you see elsewhere in the world proves that without posterity, man becomes a beast. Their actions, however brutal, are justified because they're preventing that total collapse in Britain. He tells Theo he can't possibly understand the necessity from his comfortable perch in Oxford.
And then they pivot, from defending their policies to attacking Theo personally.
Harriet Marwood starts, "You historians are happier living in the past anyway," he says, "so why not stay there?" But the real knife twist, the deepest cut, comes from Felicia Rankin.
She uses his past against him.
She uses his deepest, most private grief as a weapon. She says he's happy living in the past, and then adds the line, "Even when he killed his child, he was going backwards."
And the silence after that.
Must have been deafening. They know that in 1994, he accidentally ran over and killed his 15-month-old daughter, Natalie.
And that's the source of everything for him. His detachment, his avoidance of responsibility. He says he wants no one to look to him, not for protection, not for happiness, not for love, not for anything.
It's why his marriage collapsed. And the council knows it. Their strategy is clear. If you can discredit the messenger, you can dismiss the message. And Theo, with his burden of guilt, is the perfect target.
Xan wraps it all up with that perfect, cynical analogy.
The garden. "You desire the end, but close your eyes to the means," he tells Theo. "You want the garden to be beautiful, provided the smell of manure is kept well away from your fastidious nose."
You want order, but you don't want to see the dirty work it takes to get there.
That's his whole philosophy. He dismisses all their demands as just trivial complaints compared to the grand achievement of national stability.
So Theo leaves, completely defeated. The moral urgency of the 5 fishes is just crushed by Xan's pragmatism and that brutal personal attack.
And he has to confront himself. He realizes his whole life as a detached historian was a way to avoid the kind of catastrophic responsibility he failed at in 1994. He goes back to Julian and tells her they're foolish, that their martyrdom will be meaningless because in 70 years, no one will even be left to remember them.
He even tries to reduce her crusade to simple politics.
Yeah.
He says Rolf is just jealous of Xan.
He tries to put on his historian's hat, analyze her motivations, but Julian just rejects it completely. Her motivation isn't psychological, it's transcendent. She says, No, because God wants me to.
And that's the real conflict, isn't it? Xan's absolute pragmatism versus Julian's absolute faith.
In a dying world, those seem to be the only two poles left. Total order or total conviction.
Theo has one last conversation with Xan, a walk in the park, and he asks him point blank, why do you even bother with this job?
And Xan is surprisingly honest. He says it started with the thrill of power, of knowing he could do the job better than anyone else. But the real reason now, he admits, is to escape the ennui universal. Whatever else I am now, he says, I am never bored. He's managing the end of the world to keep himself occupied.
And then comes the final warning, delivered not in anger, but with cold, calm calculation.
Tell your friends, whoever they are, to be sensible, Xan says. If they can't be sensible, tell them to be prudent. And then the final line, the core of his policy. I'm not a tyrant, but I can't afford to be merciful. Whatever it is necessary to do, I shall do.
Mercy is a luxury a dying civilization can't afford.
That's the message. And it leaves Theo with this impossible choice. Safety and detachment or action and almost certain death.
The detached historian who is now forced to step onto the stage?
He finally admits it to himself. Faced with some abominations, a man had no option but to step onto the stage. Even if it's futile, his choice isn't rational, it's moral.
And his final act of commitment, delivering the yes message to the 5 fishes, happens in a location that's just steeped in irony.
The Cast Museum in Oxford. He leaves the postcard tucked under the head of a statue, the Diadumenus. And these aren't originals, they're plaster copies. Relics of a long-dead civilization, enduring only as ghosts. He's signaling his commitment to a struggle that is itself just a copy of struggles from the past in a society that's become a copy of life.
So we're left with this potent image. The Cass Museum, filled with these ghosts of past glory, is one of Theo's last refuges. And there's an attendant there, Digby Yule.
Yule, a retired classics professor who volunteers just because he likes the quality of the silence, and he embodies the fear of this final generation. He's constantly mumbling, I'm no trouble to anyone, just terrified of becoming a burden and ending up in the quietest queue.
And there's the contrast. The enduring art of dead cultures existing as plaster copies versus the abject fear and managed degradation of the final living generation. And Theo has chosen to fight for dignity in the face of that.
Which brings us all the way back to that core conflict. If, as one expert in the sources suggests, Homo sapiens is doomed to be one of the shortest-lived intelligent species, what's the rational response? Is it Xan's philosophy stability, comfort, the ruthless management of decline?
Or is it Theo's choice? The futile, dangerous, morally compelled struggle for justice and compassion and dignity, even if no one will be left to remember it.
If the fight for integrity can't save the species, does that make the fight meaningless?
Or does the integrity of that struggle become the only thing that matters? The ultimate final definition of what it meant to be human? That's the thought we want to leave you with, as you consider what you would fight for when the clock is ticking down to 0.